What's up, guys? Welcome back to the poker vlog. This is episode number 20. It's a super fun episode. As you guys may have noticed, I'm not actually at my place in Vegas. This is my parents' house in Northern California. Been up here for quite a while. I originally came out to hang out with some friends and go to a wedding, and it was my mom's birthday, so my family and I took her to sail in the bay, which was really fun. Then it was my grandpa's 90th birthday, and I also hung out with some friends in San Francisco to play some music. When I came back out, my car had been broken into. These guys shattered 2 windows on my passenger side, and then it looked like they wanted to hotwire it. They didn't really steal anything. They got 2 pair of sunglasses that were in the center console, but that was it. So it wasn't too bad. But my car is getting fixed, so that's why I'm up here right now. And it should be a few more days before I'm back in Vegas. In the meantime, I wanted to put this episode together. It's a vlog of a session that I played right before I left. It's pretty fun, man. I hope you guys enjoy it, and let's go ahead and get into it.
Hello, your program is Charles. I can help you.
Hi, can you please put Brad O on the list for 2-5 and 5-10?
All right, Brad O.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Sunday, April 23rd, we're playing 5-10 at the Bellagio. As a poker player, there's nothing quite like walking into the room at the Bellagio. It's the home of some of the world's biggest games and best players. If you want to improve and move through the stakes as a pro in Las Vegas, you'll inevitably be spending a lot of time there. In this session, I take another shot at the 5-10, and it was exciting from the very beginning. Within the first few orbits, I get pocket jacks in the big blind, cutoff opens to 30. I'd already seen him open several times. The button then goes all in for 70 total. The small blind folds, and it's on me. If I call, the cutoff will be getting over 4-1 on his call, and I'll have to play pocket jacks out of position in a 3-bet pot. I'm most likely ahead, so I prefer to 4-bet the player who's all in and ISO him. I make it 200. The initial raiser folds, I take back the extra 130. We're heads up, and there's no more action. The dealer puts out Ace-King 6-5-4, not a great board for us. The opponent turns over Ace-Deuce offsuit, which is not the best hand to go all in with, but it works out well for him here, so we don't win. And the cutoff says that the button should give me some money since I got him to fold with my 4-bet, and he would have called the 3-bet and won with a better ace if I hadn't. The button tosses me a blue chip, and I say, "Get that blue chip out of here. I do not accept handouts." I think that this is probably a pretty good opportunity to mention that I do accept Bitcoin contributions, so I'll have my wallet address in the description below, so thanks. A bit later, we're in the big blind with Queen Jack offsuit. It folds around to the small blind, who's a pro that doesn't chop. He raises it to 40. I have blockers to plenty of good hands. I could call, I'm certainly not folding. I expect him to have a wide range here though, so I put in a 3-bet to 110 and he folds. This way I can take the pot down without even seeing a flop, which is great. And I'm new to the table, so I like to set a precedent of 3-betting. And maybe next time he'll think twice before he tries to steal my $10 and he'll just fold and give me his $5. Now we have pocket 5s in the hijack and I raise to 30. The cutoff, small blind, and big blind all call. We go 4 ways to the flop. The flop is Jack 6-5 rainbow. It's a great flop for us. We've got bottom set. The small blind and big blind both check. I'm not going to slow play here for a few reasons. I was the pre-flop aggressor. There's only one player left to act behind me, so I don't want it to check through. There are multiple players in the hand, increasing the chances that one player caught a piece and can call my bet. Also, this is not a flop that's going to hit my range too hard, so I imagine I'll get called lighter. And some players may even raise, thinking that they can represent strong hands since they might think it hits their ranges harder than mine. I bet 60, then I glance to my left. I see the cutoff reaching for possible raising chips. He does make the raise. It's now 180 to go. He folds back to me. before we decide what action to take, we need to think about the hands that he's likely to have. It's hard to imagine that he has absolutely nothing, since he called a raise pre-flop and then raised me on the flop with 2 other players still in the hand. We do have blockers to 2 pair hands though, and the only 2 pair combination that really makes sense is exactly 6-5 of clubs, since it's the only possible suited 6-5 hand left. It's not likely that he has an overpair, since he should be 3-betting with those hands pre-flop, and it's extremely unlikely that he has pocket jacks, because he should have 3-bet with that hand pre-flop, and he wouldn't want to scare anyone away on the flop with top set when it's such a dry board. My assessment of the situation is that he has a hand like ace-jack, king-jack, or possibly 8-7 suited, or maybe a set of 6s. When those are the hands that I put him on, and when the board is this dry, I don't see a point in re-raising, since it would give him the opportunity to fold all hands that I'm beating, and he'd really only continue with a set of 6s, which is obviously beating me. I'd just call, and I would certainly play over pairs and maybe a hand like ace-jack or 8-7 the same way up to this point. The turn is the king of clubs. It's hard to know for sure if this is a good card that will give him 2 pair, or if he'll slow down with a hand like ace-jack. Either way, I'm always going to check in this situation, which is what I do here. I'm now waiting to see what the cutoff does, and he bets 250. It's slightly over half pot. It seems reasonable for him to do that with a hand like king-jack, a set of 6s, or as a bluff with 8-7. Ace-jack only beats 8-7 at this point, so if I were him, I'd definitely check it back with that hand. It's now on me. Raising would be fine, but it looks so strong that I don't love it. It would seem like I have a set of jacks, or maybe turned a set of kings. Calling isn't great because it puts us in a difficult spot on the river, since we have a hand that we want to get value out of, but we'd be playing out of position. I do like calling slightly more than raising and scaring him off though, so I make the call. The river is an ace. It's another strange card, and I have to decide whether to bet or check. If he put me on an overpair after calling his raise on the flop, then I either made a set or I have queens and I can't really call a bet. If he put me on ace-jack, then I've made essentially the highest 2 pair, since neither of us should ever have ace-king. And if I had 8-7, then I missed my draw and I can't call a bet either. All in all, there really aren't a lot of great reasons for my opponent to be betting a hand like king-jack or worse. Because of that, I like betting, just to be certain that it doesn't check through. Instead, I do check. This gives him the opportunity to try one last time to bluff with 8-7. If he has ace-jack, he'll certainly bet, and if he has king-jack, he should check, since it'd be tough for me to have or call with worse. But when someone has 2 pair, they feel like they're missing value by checking, so I wouldn't blame anyone necessarily for betting it, even though in my opinion it'd be a mistake in this particular instance. He now reaches for chips, and he bets 340 into 980. This is a really small bet. I don't need to be worried about the backdoor straight getting there, and I'm not too worried about a set either. It really feels to me like he has 2 pair and is going for thin value. I'm certainly never folding. I've only got 915 in my stack. I notify the dealer that I'm all in. I toss in 1 chip, and I'm happy that I don't get snap called. The opponent mutters to himself that he should have checked the river. There's almost 2,300 in the pot, and it's 575 for him to call, so he's getting around 4-1 pot odds. It's hard for me to be bluffing, but I suppose in his mind I might have played 8-7 similarly. He eventually does make the call. I turn over the hand, and it's good. I'm very happy to have won, but regardless of the specific holding that my opponent had, I get lucky because he made some costly mistakes. If he had 6-5 or king-jack, then he probably shouldn't have bet river, since I can never call with worse. Then he certainly shouldn't have called my shove. If he happened to have ace-jack, then he should have checked back the turn. I played the hand okay, and I'm glad the line I took worked out. In this hand, we get pocket 4s under the gun +1. The player under the gun opens to 30. This player is good, and I wouldn't expect him to be opening light from this position. I actually wouldn't mind a fold here if we were in a tougher game, but not many other players have been 3-betting behind me, so I make the call. 3 others call, and we go 5 ways to the flop. The dealer puts out king-jack 10, all diamonds. Now, on the surface, this is a bad flop for us, but when you think harder about it and pay close attention to the action pre-flop, you realize that this is actually not that. Okay, this is the worst flop ever. We want no part in this hand. Under the gun checks, no way we're bluffing at this, particularly when we likely have between 0 and 1 out. It checks through. The turn is a miracle 4 of hearts. The initial raiser checks. I put out a very small bet of 60. There are plenty of hands that have me beat, and there are 4 other opponents involved. Based on the action, it seems that the other players are either extremely weak or possibly someone is slow playing a monster. I'm trying to get called by worse, and it looks pretty strong when I bet small into multiple people when I'm second to act. No one comes along, and we win. This hand is an interesting one. We have pocket tens in the big blind. Cutoff opens at 30 with a relatively short stack. I played with him multiple times, and he's well known in Vegas for being super tight. Folds to me, and I just call. The flop is 5-5-3 with 2 clubs. I check to the aggressor, and he bets 40. Certainly not folding to a single bet. We make the call. The turn is the 4 of diamonds. I take some time to consider my options, then check, and you can see he snap checks back. At this point, it feels like we have the best hand, and he's maybe given up on it. He wouldn't necessarily always bet with an overpair or a flush draw here, since the board is much better for my range than it is for his, but I imagine that he'd at least take some time to contemplate his options more thoroughly. The river is a 9 of clubs. Based on my read on the turn, I felt like we were ahead, and he wasn't going to bet if we checked. I bet 60 to try and squeeze out some value from my hand. Again, it's a very small bet, but I can't imagine a worse hand calling more. He thinks it over for quite some time and eventually makes the call. I roll over the 10s, and it's good. It's tough to put him on a hand, but he might have had a 9, pocket 7s or 8s, or maybe he just called with ace high. Now we have pocket jacks in middle position. It's folded to us, and we raise to 30. The small blind and big blind both call. We go 3 ways to the flop. It comes 8-6-4, all clubs. Not necessarily a great flop for our hand, but it could have been much worse. The opponents both check. We bet 50 into 90, and they both fold. In the last hand we're going to analyze, we get pocket 7s in middle position. This time, a rec player limps in from under the gun. I raise to 40. Generally, if I'm first or second in the pot and I want to play my hand, I raise it up. It folds back to the player under the gun, and he makes the call. The flop comes king jack deuce with 2 diamonds. The opponent checks. I didn't connect with this board, but my image is great. I've hardly lost any hands. I'm in position heads up, and the board looks like one that will connect with my range, while it rarely connects with his once he limp calls from under the gun. I take a stab at it, and my opponent folds. Now, if you're interested in learning more about c-betting when you don't connect with the flop, then I suggest you check out a podcast from Bart Hansen. It's podcast number 78 from the Crushed Live poker site. I listened to it the other day and thought it was extremely helpful. You can get a free 1-month subscription to the site by clicking the link I have in the description box. There should be a promo code automatically inserted for you. Once you have that set up, search for the c-bet bluff matrix. Once again, I think it's very interesting and super helpful. It's definitely worth your time to check out. The pocket 7s hand ended up being the last interesting hand that I played for the session, and I was happy to cash out for over $3,100. Just finished my session here. I won $1,600 on the day, which is great. It's really nice to book a win anytime you move up. And I ran really well. The game was good. Wasn't really put in any tough spots. Didn't get bad beat. The stars kind of just all aligned for a good session. That's it for this episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. And if you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comment section. I should have my car fixed soon, and then I'll drive back down to Vegas, and hopefully I'll have some other vlogs up shortly. In the meantime, you should check out that Crushed Live poker site that I mentioned earlier. Like I said, if you click the link in the description box, then you'll get 1 month free membership to that site. So it's definitely worth checking out. There's a lot of helpful tips and podcasts and videos. So be sure to take a look at it. I guess that's it for me. Hope you're all doing well, and I'll see you soon. Good luck at the tables.